1943, Nazi-occupied Amsterdam. A man walks into a black market deal with one of the most dangerous men alive, Hermann Göring, Hitler's right hand. He's selling a freshly discovered Vermeer worth millions. What Göring doesn't know is that the painting is a fake. One wrong brushstroke, one nervous glance, or one expert who looks too closely, and Göring will have him executed on the spot. But the deal goes through. Göring hands over 137 looted masterpieces for a single canvas. The con artist walks out richer than he ever dreamed. Then the war ends. Allied forces find the Vermeer in Göring's private collection. They trace it back to the seller. And now Dutch police are dragging Han van Meegeren into a cell, not for forgery, but for treason. The punishment is death. He only has one way out: confess that the painting was a fake, but no one believes him. So he's forced to prove it the only way possible: paint another Vermeer from scratch under armed guard while the clock ticks toward his execution. Fail, and he dies a traitor. Succeed, and he's the man who robbed the Reich with a paintbrush. Will his own talent be enough to save him? And what satisfying secret nearly killed him? Mid-1920s. Han van Meegeren is a young Dutch painter obsessed with the Golden Age masters, Johannes Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Frans Hals. His technical skill borders on uncanny. His canvases could slip unnoticed into a 17th century gallery. For a moment, he tastes success. Portraits sell, critics acknowledge his draftsmanship. But then modern art sweeps through Europe. Picasso, Kandinsky, the Surrealists, and Hans' traditional style transforms from a virtue into a target. One prominent critic writes that his exhibition possessed every virtue except originality. The words slice through Hans' ego. He isn't built to shrug off rejection. He's proud, hot-tempered, and now publicly humiliated. In a fury, he abandons painting and publishes a scathing manifesto attacking the pretentious modern art establishment. They've declared war on classical beauty, he writes, and wouldn't recognize genius if it hung on their walls. The outburst torches his reputation. Han vanishes from Amsterdam's salons, retreating to a seaside villa in Roquebrune Cap Martin in the south of France. For years, he survives on portrait commissions and nurses a festering grudge. That grudge soon curdles into something dangerous and brilliant. Han realizes he doesn't have to accept the critics' verdict at all. If they want originality, he'll deliver it in the cruelest way imaginable. He will create a painting so magnificent, so convincingly from the past, that the very experts who mocked him will fall over themselves to praise it. He won't sign his name, of course. The fools will believe it's a newly discovered masterpiece by one of the long-dead legends he worships. And when they do, when they proclaim it a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, Han plans to unmask himself and watch their reputations shatter into dust. It's an outrageous revenge plot requiring years of solitary preparation and a secret double life. But how does a failed painter transform himself into a master forger capable of fooling the world's foremost experts? And what happens when one of those experts stakes his entire reputation on Han's work? For Han, revenge becomes a science. Locked away in his French retreat, he spends year after year learning to paint not like himself, but exactly like the old masters. He chooses his mark with calculated precision. Johannes Vermeer, the 17th century genius. Why Vermeer? Because Vermeer's surviving works number fewer than 40 paintings, exceedingly rare and coveted by collectors worldwide. Art historians have long speculated that some of Vermeer's early biblical paintings might still exist undiscovered, hidden in private collections for 3 centuries. The art world is primed to believe in a new Vermeer if one surfaces. Hahn plans to give them exactly what they're desperate to find. He studies every detail of Vermeer's signature style, the luminous color glazes that seem to glow from within, the delicate interplay of light and shadow, the invisible brushwork that leaves no trace of the artist's hand. But mimicking style is only half the battle. The real challenge is age. A modern oil painting remains too new at a chemical level. Fresh paint stays pliable for decades before it hardens and develops the fine network of cracks that authenticates a 300-year-old canvas. Any halfway decent laboratory test would expose a modern forgery in minutes. So Hahn transforms his villa's kitchen into a covert chemistry laboratory. He hunts down cheap 17th century paintings from junk dealers, scrapes away their worthless images, and preserves the aged canvas and ground layer intact, fabric genuinely 3 centuries old. He mixes his own paints from scratch using historically accurate pigments ground by hand: lead white, genuine ultramarine from lapis lazuli, yellow ochre, and vermilion. Then comes his stroke of mad genius. He stirs Bakelite, an early synthetic plastic invented in 1907, into his paint mixture. Bakelite hardens rapidly when heated. After finishing a painting, Hahn slides the canvas into a low-temperature oven and bakes it for hours. When the painting cools, a delicate web of cracks, the craquelure that normally takes centuries to form, spreads across the surface. He rolls India ink into the cracks and wipes it clean, leaving behind the convincing grime of ages that never existed. To any observer, the forgery has the right patina of age. More importantly, it feels ancient to the fingertips of experts. Hahn experiments relentlessly for years, ruining canvas after canvas until his technique is flawless. By 1936, he's ready. Hahn paints his first full-scale Vermeer imitation, Christ and the Disciples at Emmaus, a glowing biblical scene designed to fit a rumored Italian-influenced period of Vermeer's youth. He slips it into the market quietly, through an intermediary art dealer in Paris. Rumors begin spreading across Europe in 1937. A previously unknown Vermeer has been discovered. The art community convulses with excitement. Among the experts summoned is Dr. Abraham Bredius, the most revered Vermeer authority in the Netherlands, the man whose opinion can crown a masterpiece or condemn a fraud to obscurity. Hahn waits in the shadows, his heart lodged in his throat. Bredius examines the canvas for hours, studying every brushstroke. Finally, the 73-year-old expert beams with excitement. He publishes his verdict in the prestigious Burlington magazine, declaring the work to be the masterpiece of Johannes Vermeer of Delft. He calls it a wonderful moment in the life of a lover of art. Rotterdam's Boijmans Museum acquires the painting for 520,000 guilders, the equivalent of over $4 million today. Hahn has done it. He's pulled off the perfect forgery, and the very elites who scorned him are none the wiser. But Hahn isn't content with a one-hit wonder. Now that he's tasted victory and a small fortune, why stop? The world wants more Vermeers, and he's happy to oblige. As the praise rolls in and the money piles up, Hahn quietly prepares his next move. He has the golden goose of cons, and he's not about to retire it after laying one egg. How many fakes can he sell before someone catches on? And what happens when one of the most dangerous men in Nazi Germany comes hunting for Vermeers? Between 1937 and 1943, a string of miraculous discoveries stuns the art world. Every so often, another lost Vermeer emerges, always a biblical or early career scene that slots neatly into the master's supposed timeline. Each one is validated by scholars and snapped up by museums or private collectors for astronomical sums. Critics hail these finds as cultural treasures, gifts to the world that had been hidden for 3 centuries. Behind the scenes, of course, every gift comes from one giver, Hermann van Meegeren. Operating under fake names and through shadowy dealers across Europe, Han sells painting after painting. He's careful, spacing them out over months and years, adjusting styles slightly to fit what experts expect from Vermeer's various periods. And it works. Not a single expert cries fake. By 1943, Han has forged and sold at least 6 major masterpieces, and he's swimming in wealth beyond anything he imagined. He buys himself a mansion back in Amsterdam, 12 bedrooms, lavish gardens, a staff of servants. He indulges in fast cars, collects genuine fine art for his own walls, and hosts parties that rival anything the Amsterdam elite can muster. Remember, this is the same man who not long ago struggled for recognition while scraping by on tourist portraits. Now, he's richer than the critics who dismissed him, all thanks to a lie they can't see. In private moments, Han must have savored the delicious irony. The experts who called his original work soulless now unknowingly worship his brushstrokes, as long as another man's name hangs beneath the frame. His revenge is in full swing, perhaps too sweet. Somewhere along the way, the con stops being about proving a point. Han grows addicted to the fortune, the thrill, the secret power. He also develops dangerous dependencies on morphine and alcohol. The rejected artist has become a high-functioning criminal, playing a game he can't stop winning. World War II only broadens his opportunities. With genuine masterpieces hidden away to protect them from bombs and Nazi looters, and German officers frantic to hoard cultural plunder, it becomes even easier for Han to sell his Vermeers amid the chaos. He's not concerned with politics or morality. Money and pride remain his guiding stars. In 1942, Han paints another glowing Vermeer imitation, Christ with the woman taken in adultery. Through an Amsterdam art broker willing to deal with the Nazi occupation authorities, he quietly feeds this piece into the underground market. The painting lands in the hands of Alois Meedel, a German-Dutch collaborator who serves as a direct conduit to the Nazi high command. When Meedel lays eyes on Han's Vermeer, he senses an opportunity worth millions. He knows exactly who will covet this treasure: Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring. Göring is Hitler's right-hand man, commander of the Luftwaffe, and a fanatic art collector whose greed for paintings rivals his appetite for military medals. He's already amassed one of the largest private art collections in Europe, much of it looted from occupied territories. Sure enough, as soon as Göring learns a new Vermeer is available, he lunges. He must have this painting for his personal collection, at any cost. Han's quiet forgery scheme has just entangled him with one of the most dangerous men on the planet. Göring sees only a priceless Dutch masterpiece that will cement his status as a connoisseur. A clandestine deal takes shape in late 1943. But what price does Göring offer for a single painting? And why will this triumph become the very thing that drags Han before a firing squad? 1943. The exchange is executed as planned. The price Göring pays is staggering. He trades 137 looted paintings from his own hoard in exchange for this single Vermeer. Many of those paintings are genuine masterpieces, Cranachs, Holbeins, works ripped from Jewish families, and national collections across occupied Europe. It is perhaps the art swap of the century. 137 real artworks handed over for Han's freshly painted fraud. Hermann Göring proudly hangs Christ with the woman taken in adultery in his estate at Karenhall, elated to own what he believes is a newly discovered Vermeer. In return, Han van Meegeren, through his network of intermediaries, walks off with a king's ransom in liberated art. The forger has just swindled the Reichsmarschall, one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany. In a bizarre twist, he's actually freed 137 genuine masterpieces from Nazi hands, using nothing but canvas, pigment, and lies. But in May 1945, the Third Reich collapses. Allied forces capture Göring and begin inventorying his stolen treasures. They stumble upon what they believe is a priceless Vermeer, the very painting Hahn forged, hanging in Göring's bombed-out estate. Investigators trace its provenance backward, through dealers and intermediaries, until one name surfaces: Hermann von Meegeren. To Allied art recovery officers and Dutch authorities, the conclusion is obvious. Hahn betrayed his country by selling one of its cultural crown jewels to the Nazis. They aren't yet aware the painting is fake. All they see is a Dutch masterpiece in enemy hands and the man responsible. On May 29, 1945, Dutch police arrest Hermann von Meegeren in Amsterdam. He is charged with fraud and collaboration, essentially treason, for aiding the Nazi plunder of Dutch art. Overnight, Hahn goes from secret millionaire to national villain. He's vilified as a cultural traitor, and the public clamors for him to face a firing squad. Under special wartime tribunals, high treason carries only one penalty: death. Hahn sits in a dank prison cell, the same man who recently sipped champagne in a 12-bedroom mansion, now shackled and staring at execution. Guards and officials treat him with open contempt. Other accused collaborators are already being rounded up and shot. The irony cuts like a blade. His brilliant con was intended to embarrass the art elite and enrich himself, and it succeeded beyond imagination, yet that success now threatens his life. Late at night in his cell, Hahn realizes there is only one way out: prove that the Vermeer he sold to Göring was never real to begin with. He has to show the world that the prized painting was a forgery, and that he, not some long-dead master, painted it. But how can he prove the painting is fake without his original materials? And will anyone believe a confession from a condemned man desperate to save his own neck? At first, Hahn's claims fall on deaf ears. When he tells his jailers and the investigative judge that the Göring Vermeer is a forgery he painted himself, they laugh in his face. The initial response is exactly what you'd expect. Sure, and I'm the Queen of England. It sounds like a pathetic last resort from a desperate man grasping at any lie. But Hahn persists. He describes the methods he used in painstaking detail: the 17th century canvases, the bakelite mixed into the paint, the oven trick, the hand-ground pigments. He points out subtle inconsistencies in the painting that only the forger would know: a slightly wrong perspective here, an anachronistic shadow there. Could this bizarre tale possibly be true? If it is, Hermann von Meegeren is no traitor. He's a folk hero who swindled the Nazis with nothing but skill. Dutch authorities remain skeptical, but Hahn leaves them no choice. Finally, he proposes a solution. He will prove his claim by painting another flawless Vermeer from scratch under armed supervision. It's an extraordinary proposition, unlike anything in legal history. Reluctantly, the court agrees. If he fails, he faces the firing squad. If he succeeds, the treason charge evaporates, though he'll still face charges of fraud and forgery. In July 1945, a makeshift studio is set up inside an Amsterdam courtroom. Under armed guard and the watch of skeptical experts crowding the gallery, Hahn is provided with a 17th century canvas, authentic pigments, brushes, and, to steady his withdrawal tremors, small rations of morphine and wine. He stands before the blank canvas. The judge gives a curt nod. Hahn dips his brush and makes the first stroke. He has begun painting for his life. Day after day, Hahn labors at the easel under constant watch. He chooses a subject similar to his earlier fakes, another biblical scene in Vermeer's style. something plausible for the master's lost years. Every brushstroke is scrutinized by hostile eyes. Each evening, the materials are locked away to prevent trickery. Every morning, they're inspected for tampering. But Han isn't smuggling anything. He genuinely recreates the methods he perfected over a decade. Slowly but surely, a luminous image emerges on the canvas. Figures bathed in soft golden light, subtle shadows, delicate details that scream 17th century technique. Skepticism in the room begins to crack. They are witnessing, in real time, the creation of what looks for all the world like a painting 300 years old. 6 weeks pass. It's a grueling test of endurance for a man in his mid-50s, especially one weakened by years of morphine and alcohol abuse. At times, Han sweats and trembles, withdrawal pangs clawing at his concentration, but he pushes through. Every minute on that canvas is a minute further from the firing squad. Even some of the art experts who once authenticated his fakes begin to murmur that the style is impeccable. If this is all a bluff, it's the most elaborate in legal history. With each new brushstroke, the truth of Han's story becomes harder to deny. What will the final scientific tests reveal? And can a painted confession actually overturn a death sentence? After 6 weeks of painstaking work, Han van Meegeren completes his final painting, a shimmering tableau in Vermeer's style, right there in the courthouse under armed guard. The result astounds even seasoned curators, but subjective impressions won't satisfy the court. The prosecution scientists run chemical tests on the fresh painting. The results land like a thunderclap. Bakelite in the paint, a synthetic compound that did not exist in the 17th century. It's definitive proof the painting is a modern fake, just as Han claimed. The experts are aghast, not at Han's guilt, but at his genius. He really did fool them all. And by doing so, he unwittingly saved his own life. In a twist almost too wild to believe, Han van Meegeren transforms from national disgrace to folk hero. The court drops the treason charge entirely. After all, he hadn't truly sold out his country, he'd actually conned the enemy. Instead, he is convicted of art forgery and fraud. Later that year, he's sentenced to just 1 year in prison. The same court that was ready to execute him hands down a mere slap on the wrist. Public opinion makes an about-face with dizzying speed. Upon hearing how Han robbed Hermann Göring of fortune and pride with nothing but canvas and paint, Dutch citizens begin to cheer him as a mischievous patriot. In a national poll, Van Meegeren is voted the second most popular man in the Netherlands, trailing only Prime Minister Willem Drees. The man who couldn't earn respect as a legitimate artist has achieved a perverse kind of immortality, famous and even celebrated for the very deception that nearly cost him his life. Han savors every moment. Ever the showman, he cracks jokes at his sentencing hearing. When asked why he sold his fake Vermeers for such astronomical prices, he grins at the gallery. "I could hardly have done otherwise. Had I sold them cheaply, it would have been obvious they were forgeries." The press and public adore him. After the verdict, he struts out of the courtroom practically a free man. 2 months later, in December 1947, Han van Meegeren dies of a heart attack at age 58, never having served a single day of his prison term. Some say the years of stress, secrets, morphine, and alcohol finally claimed him. Others note that he exited on his own terms, escaping punishment entirely. Either way, his place in history was already carved in stone. Han van Meegeren had secured his legacy as perhaps the greatest art forger who ever lived. He proved that the so-called experts could be fooled by a determined outsider with enough patience, skill, and spite. He set out to beat an art world that scorned him, and he did, so spectacularly that his fakes fooled scholars, museums, and Nazi war criminals alike. The critics wanted originality. Hahn delivered something they never saw coming: proof that genius can wear a mask, and that the line between masterpiece and fraud is thinner than anyone wants to admit.